Hello, I'm Brad Burns. I'm a serious salmon angler and lover of the Miramichi and Cains rivers. I'm also the author of two books inspired by Atlantic salmon, Closing the Season and On the Cains. This evening I'm going to read you three selections from my latest book, On the Cains. The first passage is from the introduction. For the anglers I know who have fished the Cains over the years, the attraction the river has for them is magnetic. From a lifetime of angling, the memories they have of fishing the fall salmon run against an unspoiled backdrop of dark green spruce and colorful hardwoods, or seeing 20-inch plus brookies sipping the emerging insects from a headwaters pool in June, are among their most cherished memories. And for more than a few, these are memories that they shared with their fathers and even their grandfathers, who were also drawn to this place and fished with previous generations of men from the same families that are still guiding on the Cains River today. The second passage is from a chapter about the various pools on the Cains River, and it describes how you can connect the dots from the men who founded the sport fishery in the early 1900s right down to today's guides and anglers. It is very difficult in 2018 to find a living person who has a clear memory of the chain of people that go back to Harry Allen's time, and essentially to the beginning of Cains River salmon fishing. I interviewed Gary Crawford regarding his Cains River history on January 4, 2018. His memory was very sharp, remembering accurately as other research work verified the timing of property purchases, employment, camps being built or torn down, and so on. Gary said that Coleman Moore was a client of Harry Allen and took the week-long canoe trips with Harry's staff down the Cains River. William Crawford, Gary's grandfather, guided and cooked on these trips, and he met Coleman Moore that way. In Seabury Stanton's camp log, it says that in 1938, on their first trip to George Allen's camps, Bill Crawford was one of their guides. He must have stayed on with George after Harry's death in 1932. Clearly, Coleman became enchanted with the Cains, and William Crawford helped him to find a property of his own to purchase on the river. Moore usually brought several friends up for kelp fishing, and Gary Crawford began guiding there while he was a teenager in the 1950s. Gary says that spring fishing opened on April 1 in those years, and the Cains often iced out earlier than the Miramichi. In some years, they fished in areas of open water between still frozen stretches of the river. When the river did ice out completely, the guides would take Moore and his guests as far upriver as the Arbo Pool and follow the kelp migration back down the Cains. There were many more fish in the run in those days, and Gary said that there were always fish on the line, and he would often spend all day long unhooking salmon. In those years, a shore lunch was cooked every day by the guides, and it often was Gary's duty. Some days, Gary would cook for as many as a dozen men. The meals were usually steak and fish, and the fish were kelts. Gary said that kelts had always been eaten by the people along the river, and that he preferred them to bright salmon, since they were not as oily or overly rich as fresh-run salmon can sometimes be. The last passage I'm going to read you tells the story of a modern-day fishing trip taken in August of 2016. In 2016, the warm weather again set in during late July and early August. On August 12th, water hit a low of a half a meter, very low water, but a week of rainy weather was forecast. I called Jim Growl, who is often good for leaving on the spur of the moment, and on August 14th, we drove up through the rain. The Blackville gauge reported a water height of 1.2 meters the following day. This was a significant raise of water. One of our guides, Darrell Warren, said that he had run into one of the guides from the Blackbrook Salmon Club that morning at the Irving in Blackville, and they had absolutely killed them the evening before. All the fish, he said, were caught right at the mouth of the Cains River. We really lucked out and had a drizzly, cool, rainy weather from our start on August 15th, running right through our last day on August 18th. This kept the water between 63 and 65 degrees. The height gradually increased to 1.3 meters. Jim and I put 22 in the net, fishing just mornings. Country Haven had the pool in the afternoons, and doubtless they also did very well. These were mostly grills, but there were salmon of 18 and 17 pounds in our catch. I later heard that folks did quite well up at Buttermilk and Salmon Brook as well. We watched salmon rolling on the surface from all the way down to the corner by Hooper's to as far as we could see up the river towards Herman Campbell's. Clearly, a large percentage of this group of fish had been holding at Black Brook and were just waiting for a good flow of water to head into the Cains. We were in the right place at the right time, but it wasn't entirely by luck.